Welcome, YouTubers, Facebook, Rumble. This is News with a View, a Fat Cat production. Today is August 15th, 2025. I'm going to move this a little bit closer to me. Get that going a little bit better here. Your host, John A. Costa. And again, this is a Fat Cat production of News with a View, episode 117. Going to jump right into it today because I want to get this thing done. We've been discussing a lot. I'm going to go over tomorrow the whole shebang, everything I did during the week, and we'll summarize that up. Friday's usually a slow news day out of Washington. But District of Columbia Attorney General sues the Trump administration for their takeover. Says it's illegal. Interesting. I'm going to talk a lot about the Schiff Hoax and what Hugo Gurdon from the Washington Examiner stated in a interview. And then we're going to jump into Arizona State Senator Ortiz and a controversy that's going on with that. I wouldn't. It's interesting. It's an interesting spin on things. I'm going to switch over to this guy. Talk to you here. That's you guy there. That's the other guy. Get my cameras. I moved my cameras around today. You know what? I'm going to go back to the other guy. I like that shot better. All right. So let's talk about Washington, D.C. and the hostile takeover of the city police. Number one, it's not a hostile takeover. And as who was it? Attorney General Brian Schwalb tries to state that it's a hostile takeover. Well, it's not hostile. You weren't arrested. You weren't detained. You weren't roughed up. You weren't thrown out. It's what the president can do in Washington, D.C. So this is just more democratic stalling, blocking common sense and lawful actions of the president. Just more of this nonsense that the Democrats are doing. And the deeper and deeper you go into this, I think you're going to find you guys are in deeper and deeper hole in the ground that you cannot get out of. You guys are just totally out of control and grabbing at straws. It's pathetic. It's embarrassing. It has to be embarrassing being a Democrat today. It just has to be. There's just no rhyme or reason to it. You're just like a child having a tantrum. And so, the president does have the authority to unilaterally deploy National Guards to the U.S. Capitol, but this power is currently being challenged and tested in the courts. It's what he's allowed to do. You can challenge it, you could test it, and the court's going to turn around and go, the president can do it. Have a nice day. Because the District of Columbia is federally controlled. It is not part of Maryland. It's not part of Virginia. It is controlled by the federal government and falls under federal jurisdiction rather than a state because it has no state affiliation. Now, they wanted it, they screamed for it. The Democrats are, crying for it. Not going to happen, folks. So the District Attorney General, Brian Schwalb, filed a lawsuit on Friday morning, hours after the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bundy, late Thursday, and this is last week, issued an order for the federal government to impose a new police chief in the city's metropolitan police department. And Schwab is saying that these actions are not allowed. Well, when you call in the National Guard and you take over the policing action, they're not really taking over the policing action. They're assisting in the policing action. Going beyond their legal and federal power over the nation's capital, they're saying by replacing this individual with someone else under federal authority is illegal. I don't think it is. Because when the federal authority, then National Guard, leaves, the acting police chief returns to his duties. So it's not like, you can only have one person in charge. And when the feds come in, they're in charge. Might be a legal argument that they could make over it, where they could say, well, then the police chief then can report directly to this other individual, but he maintains his autonomy. He retains his status as police chief. So let's see how that works out. But the president, and they can't do that. I hate to tell them that. But no, I don't hate to tell them that. I like telling them that. So what has happened? By declaring a hostile takeover, the administrator is abusing a limited temporary authority under the Home Rule Act. He just shot himself right there in the foot. Temporary. This is a temporary situation. If it goes beyond 30 days, if this goes beyond 30 days, then the president really has to go to Congress and makes his case to Congress. But as of right now, there's no violation. So your suit is without merit. Come back on day 31 if it continues and he hasn't gotten congressional approval. Then you can come back. So, as of right now, Trump has named the administrator of the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, to be the Emergency Police Commissioner. A move that immediately was challenged by the local leaders who used it. And federal National Guard troops were ordered into the city 4 days ago, and this is a couple days old. And, for obvious criminal reasons and the crime, and going after people who are criminals. I understand their angst. But DC has become a runaway city, like Philadelphia, Chicago, York, not as bad. LA is terrible. I mean, there's roving gangs that just rob stores. It's totally out of control. Totally, totally, totally out of control. And the state's not addressing it, so Trump is saying this is ridiculous. Those are my citizens there, and I'm here to protect those citizens. And he's going to invoke that. And he might have a good chance of winning that, and then going through the courts. Then what happens is that the Trump administration gets to have their say and ask the police how they are being told to report what is a crime. Because remember, Biden and all, crime rate is going down under me. I did it. Yeah, because they weren't reporting crimes anymore. Burglary, car break-ins, carjackings, assaults, shoplifting, vagrancy. They were all, no, we're not. Those aren't crimes anymore. So they don't get listed. So yeah, the crime rate. You could eliminate the murder rate by making murder legal. Sounds crazy, but that's what the Biden administration was doing. The Posse Comitatus Act of 1878 prohibits federal troops from going into states and enforcing prohibiting federal troops in participating in civilian law enforcement unless expressly authorized by law. In Washington, D.C., where the National Guard operates under federal authority, the Act limits the military roles in domestic law enforcement. So they work with the police. However, there are exceptions, such as the Insurrection Act, which allows the military to intervene in cases of rebellion and invasion. Recent legal challenges have highlighted the Act's limitations, particularly regarding the deployment of National Guard troops for law enforcement purposes. Now, a state can send out their National Guard. The governor can call out the state National Guard. The governor of an adjacent state could ask for, New Jersey could ask for Pennsylvania's help, could ask for New York's help, could ask for Maryland's help. And then those governors would have to agree to that and then send the National Guard in to help those states. But once they're in those states, they can't be then deployed. Those ones from Maryland, let's say, can't be deployed to New York. It'd be under very, very direct reasons why, such as an invasion or insurrection or something like that, where you used to call them the Home Guard, and but that's in very, very limited, very limited. But it's very interesting because Trump has been calling the illegal coming over the country as an invasion. And it'd be hard to say, what is 12 million people running across your border? And they go, no, no, they were just, looking for, work and looking for this and stuff. Yet they called what happened at the Capitol insurrection, and there was no weapons. The only person killed was killed by the Capitol Police. So there, that could be called an insurrection. But the other invasion couldn't be because they didn't have weapons. You see how Hippocratic parties can be. And that's where you have to watch out, folks. Because if a particular party conforms to this here set of rules, they can do it. They can do it. And there ain't nothing you can do about it. Except change the laws. And then fight to change the laws. And when I say fight, I mean through the process. Not through rebellion or riots or, social conscience, or whatever the nonsense summer of love. And Democrats, we're going to bring that up. Oh, we're going to bring that all up. Now, I'm a Republican. When they say, mega, you're a mega. Well, yeah, I want to make America great again. I want to see America great. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with saying, make America great again? Well, man, it's great right now. Well, then what's your problem? Then I'm stating the obvious. So I don't understand when people go, oh my God, you're a mega, you're a mega. I want to make America great again. Is that such a bad word to use? A bad phrase? You had Biden out there going, if you ain't black enough, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black enough. Can you imagine that? I mean, I get the craziness of the fringe. It was like Trump going down. I can walk down Fifth Avenue and shoot someone and still win. That was crazy world. You just don't come out and say those things if you're running for an office. But obviously, you can. We're now at that point. I mean, I would never say that. But that's, just as crazy as the other guy. And I said, I will call out both sides. I have no problem doing that, Bob, in New York, even though I am a conservative. But sometimes when a person is right, and it's not sometimes, but when a person is right, they're right. And it might sound, that it doesn't make common sense to a person, but if it's allowed here, game over, Johnny. Game over. So, that's been 20 minutes of talking about what's going on in Washington, D.C. And I think what other states are going to realize that we don't want this type of spotlight on our cities, and we're going to start policing a little bit more. And, we don't want any bad light. And there's already in one state, I think, where they called it a, an emergency because of the crime rate. And the governor or mayor or whoever is stepping up to the plate because they don't want the federal government. They don't want Big Daddy coming in. And I don't want Big Daddy coming in. I'm all about state rights. I am all about state rights. So when I see the federal government encroaching on things, yeah, I take notice. And as I said yesterday, I'm just going to go off subject just a little bit. With what's going on there, and under the guise of we're cleaning up the streets, they're checking citizenship. And that is something all Americans should sit up and start listening to. Because I never had to do that before. If I get stopped and someone says, you know, because of your last name, you know, now you have to. I never had to prove I was a citizen before, except if I was leaving the country and coming back. I didn't have to do that. Well, for job employment and stuff, you had to show, you know, Social Security and stuff like that. But now, a routine traffic stop can turn into something else. And I say, take notice to that. Take notice to that. Because if you say, well, you know, my name's O'Leary, what do I got to worry about? You know, the old, you know, first they came with people with brown eyes, then they went after people with green eyes, and no one did anything. And now they're coming for people with blue eyes, and there's no one left to say anything because no one said anything. I get that. I get that. But this is something that we should be looking at. And if that's what the case is, then we need national ID. Now, I don't know if real ID, that was the purpose behind it. I don't think it was. Because that just puts your name into a database that the FAA could use and TSA. Now, of course, that information can fly all over the place. But it's not supposed to like that. But then, you know, we need a national ID system, which many countries who are democracies have. And you might have to show that with your driver's license if you get pulled over. You don't know. But people, you know, the O'Learys can maybe feel a little bit safer than the Rodriguezes down the street. Right? Who are citizens. And now they're forced to prove it. I see. That is a tough position. And I said when this was all happening, how is it being handled? How is it being monitored? All right, yeah, you got to do something about the 12 million people that we have no idea over. I get that. Give me your plan. Just stopping everyone, shaking them down? I don't know if that's... You can do that. Now, certainly you can do that if they're stopped for a legitimate reason. You know, I pull you over. I'm a cop. I pull you over. Speeding, tail lights out, or something looks out of place. Boom, boom, boom. One stop can escalate into another, just so you know. But it has to be a legitimate stop. Can't just be, well, that guy looks funny, or they look like Mexicans. You can't do that. But if they were going 75 miles an hour in a 50 and I pull you over, and the guy could hardly speak English and can't show a valid ID or driver's license, well, then I could call ICE and I'd call everyone else. And of course, charge him for that crime or that violation. Or the district attorney decides we're not going to press the no driver's license. We're just going to hand him over to ICE. And that way, he doesn't have to see a judge because he's not charged. We detained him, and we dropped that. Well, you can't say that, it was, a false arrest. You didn't have a driver's license. You want to go down that route? Did you have a driver's license? No, that's why we stopped you. We just elected, which is our right, not to pursue charges. Now, me, if I didn't have it, and they go, well, hold it, why'd you let that guy go and not me? And that argument could be made. I don't think it would hold, but you could make that argument. I'm being treated differently. No, we treated him as a non-citizen, and we're treating you as a citizen. There you go. So that's what's going on there, and I spent an extra 7 minutes on that because I want the show to be an hour, and I really don't have a lot today. Though I got some fun stuff. Hugo Gurdon condemns Adam Schiff for being an architect of the Russian hoax. This is from the Washington Examiner. Well, actually, it's not from the Washington Examiner. It's from Newsmax, Rob Schmidt's Tonight. So that's interesting. The Washington Examiner editor-in-chief, Hugo Gurdon, suggested recent allegations that Senator Adam Schiff, Democrat, California, authorized leaks about the 2017 investigation into President Donald Trump's allegations absolutely fits Schiff's reputation. He went on to say, I think Adam Schiff is, I think, one of the slipperiest, most unpleasant politicians on Capitol Hill. Now, all right, gee, not big deal to say that. I think the story, the information that he was approving leaks, absolutely fits with the way he was very publicly behaving back in 2017. Well, I'd look at the intel reports, and that's going to come up further, and the whistleblower. And isn't it funny that when it's a whistleblower against the Democrats, they're disgruntled? No, he's a disgruntled person. But when it's a whistleblower against Trump, oh, absolutely, we stand behind that person 100%. This is the truth, and there's more, and Schiff. That's why he is the slipperiest and most unpleasant politician on the Hill. He shouldn't be in or on the Hill. He should be in Leavenworth. All right. Now, Gurdon appeared on Newsmax, Rob Schmidt Tonight, and on Wednesday to suggest that Schiff's role in the investigation has seemingly benefited him ever since. Well, yeah, it's on the news, and the news runs to him. And anytime he wanted the news, he got his piece on the 6 o'clock news. national. Him and Nadler standing up there, Nadler unable to hold himself up. Slob. Screaming they have all the evidence and they have it, and then he's censured for lying. Lying. Remember, he was censured. Adam Schiff was censured. Schiff's leaks were an attempt to suggest Russia was meddling in the election. However, the intelligence community's assessment at the time found that Russia was not specifically backing the then Republican nominee. Now, we play shenanigans in other countries' elections. We did it with Putin. Why do you think? You think that Putin hated Clinton and Obama just because they were president and secretary of state and things like that? No. Because Putin knew that Obama, Clinton, Biden were actively working against Putin. Cutting deals in the Ukraine with Biden's son. Oh, this has not even come out yet. Wait till Trump and Biden kiss and make up, and the exchange of intelligence reports on the Ukraine, which is the biggest fraud perpetrated on America. Ukraine has always been dirty. A lot of deals go over there. A lot of deals happen. It's always been dirty. Corrupt. When I say dirty, corrupt. So, Schiff denies the allegation, said the whistleblower is a disgruntled former staffer who was fired with cause. Yeah, disgruntled because he was asked to break the law. And probably said back then, hey, I'm not doing this. And then spoke to the FBI, who then reported back to Schiff, you got a problem with this guy. You got a big problem with this guy. He just came in, and now he made other people aware of what was going on. We can contain it. For now, you got to get rid of this guy. And you got to tell him in no certain words. So, but Gurdon said now he's accused of authorizing these leaks. It's perfectly clear that he was an architect of the massive hoax, and he did this to help his political position, and obviously it did that. Well, I think that Schiff is in for a hard ride. He is not Donald Trump that can weather the storm and figure it out. This guy is not as smart as people say he is, but what he is he is a blackmailer. He has information. And he'll use that information as he sees fit. Well, that's what a blackmailer does. Alleged, I'll say alleged blackmailer. I take that statement back and insert alleged blackmailer, because we haven't heard from everyone yet. So this is all leading back to Comey, Brennan, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama. It's going to get interesting. Now, I do not think the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, was involved in any of this stuff. I think he has too much self-respect to be involved in anything like that. I didn't like his politics, but the guy was a stand-up judge. Don't have to like his politics, but he was a stand-up judge. I certainly did not want to see him on the Supreme Court. Because he was just not pliable to the right as much as he was flexing to the left. Now you could say that about, Thomas and some of these other people, and you would be correct. You would be correct. But he was a little bit too lefty, loosey-goosey. So, Schiff, I can only hope horrible things for Schiff. And his possible criminal investigation over the housing paperwork and stuff like that seems like, oh, that's spitting on the sidewalk type of thing. But not really. Not really. Because he's going to have to answer that. And I wouldn't if I was him. Not telling them nothing. Ain't telling you coppers nothing. I ain't no squealer. But here's where they're going to get him and James, the Attorney General, out of New York. Is when we asked you questions, you tried to mislead us. When you filled out that paperwork, were you married to your father, Miss James? No. So you weren't truthful in it. Oh, I made a mistake. So you want us to believe you that you thought you were married to your father. And that's a mistake. Now that's misleading. And a judge would believe that and go, yeah, you got a problem, sweetheart. And the same thing with Schiff. When you were filling out that paperwork, and they asked you, what's the purpose of this home? Well, I didn't, it was the guy that was handling my paperwork made the mistake, and I didn't catch it, and blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? You convicted Donald Trump of the same thing. He had lawyers. You think he sat there and filled out an application at someone's desk? Had someone do it. He probably said this is worth $100 million, and to him it was worth $100 million. And a bank coming in there could look at it and go, I know what our rules and regulations say, fair and accurate appraisal. And we're looking at it, we tend to agree. Everything that he touches turns to gold. So right now this is $60 million, but probably when he does all these other deals, it'll be $100 million. We can get there. But they had the right to challenge him. And the same will be true on the people who approved Schiff's loan. They go, so this is going to be your legal residence. So they ask you that at closing. Now, I've been through 5 or 6 of my personal closings, and I've been at 60 or 70 closings representing the credit union that I was part of. And you sit there and you go, this is your legal residency, right? And you ask for a driver's license. So if they haven't moved in yet, they can't do that. But, yes, you must show that, on your insurance policy that you are living there and you're doing this, and a driver's license. And we did that. And what we didn't, and there were instances where it just fell off the radar, we didn't, never got the paperwork or something, and it just fell off. And during an exam by the supervisory committee, it gets picked up and they go, hey, you're missing this. Where is this person it says he's living in there, but where's the proof of it? And we were lucky because 98% of our membership were in the union, and we were right next door. And we could show where they had given us permission in another piece of paper to reach out to the following people for information with their pay. And the union is part of that because the union negotiates that. So they was able to give us their address, and that's where their mailing address was. So that acted temporarily as, good as gold. We see when was it changed, when was it done. It was in the time frame of our paperwork, and then we'd reach out to them and go, did you change your driver's license yet? Yeah, all right, send us a copy of it. We need it for our records. That's all. And in 95% of the cases, we found that to be the case. We did have a case where the member was renting the house out and had gotten a favorable rate. And what we asked for him is an explanation on why it changed. And, I said, speak to your attorney. Don't fill this out yourself, but speak to your attorney. And the attorney wrote it out, charged him about $400. Circumstances changed, boom, boom, boom. He couldn't drive from here to there, boom, 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 boom. His wife didn't like the house, boom, 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 boom. And we put it in the file. No one ever saw that. The loan got paid off. He sold the house 3 or 4 years later. That goes into a box never to be seen again. And that's how that's done. But Schiff, now, because someone looked at the paperwork, they got him. Now, he could say, hey, I made a mistake. I didn't realize in the paperwork that someone had checked that box. And I can't recall being asked, I did have the form that said, you fill out, has anything material changed in the last 90 days or, whatever? We would ask, you still have a job, right? You still have this. Nothing has changed from your application. You still have the money in the bank, you still have this, or nothing has changed. And you sign that little release, and now you go on. So if he was saying, hey, nothing did change for me, but I never looked over there. And then the question gets asked, okay, when you were applying for the loan, and they said, this is the rate, and we gave rates. We said, if you're going to owner occupied, now we always had owner occupied. You couldn't buy a house for an investment. You had to owner occupy. And when I bought where I live now, I owned another house. But I had my wife fill out the paperwork, and she had enough income, and we put enough money down to satisfy any questions. When it came up, my salary could more than cover where I lived, and her salary could just about cover this nut. So it got a little dicey, and they looked at it, and the feds looked at it, and all right. And then they tried to turn around and say, you have a joint account. And I said, no, I don't. I have my own account, and my wife has her own account. My wife has access to my account, and I have access to her account. We're authorized users, but it's not a joint account. And that got a little dicey, and then I won that. And, they said, well, you got a little loosey-goosey with it. And I said, no, it's not loosey-goosey. It's bang, bang, bang. And I said, I don't want you to think I went loosey-goosey. And, I said in the application and in a summary letter and stuff, I said I was in the process of selling that second house. And once I did that, I sold that second house. We paid the loan off. We only had the loan for 3 years or 2 years. And we paid it off. So, then everyone, they still weren't satisfied. Even though it was a paid off loan, they looked at it because I was an officer of the union, a credit union, and officer of the union. So they look, and they can fine point it. And, Schiff is in trouble. Shifty is in trouble with that. And nothing would happen to him with this. This would not be, if he went in there and he goes, yeah, it's obviously I made a mistake. Yes, I should have caught it. And yes, I did sign that on the dotted line on the bottom saying, under penalty of perjury and blah, 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 I agree that, I acknowledge and attest that this information is true and accurate to the best of my abilities. I missed it. And, when they would throw rates around, yeah, that's a good rate. Yeah, grab it. Lock that rate in. All right. Now what? I didn't purposely go, hold it. They want to give it to me for 4.2%. Well, you're not living in it. Well, what happens if I say I'm going to live in it? I'm close enough I can go and live in it. Well, that's 3.8%. Well, tell them I'll live in it. That's where you get in trouble. And he knows it. He's a lawyer. He might not be a real estate lawyer, but I'm sure he had someone acting in his stay and representing him. And that lawyer then, did you do your job? Did you tell him? When you advised him, And then at closing, they have an abstract. I forgot, I was thinking that last night what that was. An abstract who represents the bank, who represents the closing, who represents, the title company. And he goes through, or she goes through, and they go through the whole process. Now, back then, a lot of this stuff was being handled through the U.S. mail. FedEx everything, FedEx back. FedEx everything, FedEx back. And if nothing changes in 2 days, the deal goes through. And, or the 3 days, the cooling off period, boom, boom, boom. On that fourth day, magic happens and you own it. So I don't know if that was the case. I don't know if he was personally involved with it. I don't know that, and won't say he was or wasn't. But at the end of the day, his signature down at the bottom, that's what matters. And I think, as much as this is a small little thing, it shows that, spit on the sidewalk or jaywalk, we can get you. And then we can ask you questions. And those questions can go further. And that's why I always say, when questioned by the police or the FBI, always be very polite and say, when you can, I'd like to have my lawyer. I'd like to speak to have a lawyer present. And then under his advisement, I will have absolutely no problem answering questions that he advises me on. Now, they could turn around and go, we're going to hold you till you get a lawyer here. Most cases, in stuff of this manner, you go, listen, I'm not going to discuss it because I don't have the material in front of me. And they could say, well, we got it right here. I don't care. I don't care what you have in your briefcase right now. I'm exercising my Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights. Give me your card. I will have my attorney reach out to you. And they might turn, well, when? As soon as he can. You know where I live. You know who I am. Not going anywhere. Do not. The police, when they come knocking on your door to ask you questions on something that in your head you go, ooh, oops. Keep your mouth shut and get an attorney. Whereas when the police come to your door or stop you or you're doing something you know is naughty, other than like a speeding ticket or something like that. And even with the speeding ticket, when they ask you, hey, you know why I'm pulling you over, right? Oh, yeah, I was doing 50 and the sign said 35 back there. And I'm doing 50. Well, you just admitted your guilt. And my advice, again, I'm not a lawyer, nor am I giving legal advice. Legal, financial, anything. But for me, I would say, no, I have no idea why you're pulling me over. You don't know how fast you were going? I have no idea why you're pulling me over. Well, I clocked you at 50 in a 35. License, registration, insurance card. Now, I will tell you at that point you're getting a ticket. Whereas if you went and said to him, maybe, yeah, I know. I saw the sign. Yeah, you got me. Bad me. Here you go. And you don't argue with him. You might come back and go, listen, there's been accidents over here or something. Keep it at 35. You were straight up with me. I'm going to be straight up with you. And I've had that happen. I've had Virginia State troopers pull me over. And he goes, you know why I'm pulling you over? And I go, yeah, I probably shoved gravel onto your car when I passed you so fast. And he looked and he goes, all right, what was going on? I go, I was arguing with my brother here about gun rights. And he goes, what about it? I go, you got two hands. You should be illegally at least to own 2 guns. And he started laughing, and the license registration came back and goes, listen, slow it down. And I was truthful. I told him, it's a ticket. I'll take a driving defense course. I'll have that thing taken down in 18 months. I pay the freight. I pay the freight. I screwed up. I take responsibility. I had that a couple times where they go, slow down, just slow down. I had another one where the trooper stopped me and he goes, you don't have to answer this. Came right out and he goes, you don't have to answer this, but I got to ask you why you were doing 86 in a 65. And I looked at him. And I said, the car wouldn't go any faster. And he just started laughing. I had my grandson in the car. I was in North Carolina, I think, driving him back to New York. And he was in his car seat. He was about 5 years old. And he goes, I thought you were going to tell me you're trying to get up to the exit. He goes, Junior had to pee or something. You were trying to get up there. And I go, I'm not going to lie to you. It's a freaking ticket. And he looked over and he goes, yeah, I don't think your speedometer's working. It's a mechanical. It's still going to cost you $300. You're going to have to get a lawyer. It's still going to cost you $300. And I'm like, fine. Fine. Me bad. So, all right. Schiff, the heat is being turned up on Schiff from multiple angles now. And when this starts happening, now they're going to start looking at people around Schiff who don't have a pardon. And what do you think some of those people are going to say when they start talking to them? Hey, relax, we're not after you. Unless we have to be after you. But if you cooperate with us, and they might say, hey, I want a lawyer here, but I'll talk to you. They might say, well, if we find that you're trying to protect someone here, then you're as guilty as that person. Don't talk to us. You want a lawyer? Go get a lawyer. You're not under arrest or anything. And that lawyer could give us a call within a week. Then we're not so nice. And they will start rattling people. And they'll shake the tree to see what falls out of it. And as I say, he be in trouble. He be in a whole mess of trouble. All right. We're now at the 1 hour point. I want to get through this real quick. Arizona State Senator posted the location of ICE agents. And this is from Esquire, which I normally don't look at. But it's another outlet source. And this story is by Charles Pierce. So Pierce out of Esquire. I'm sure he writes for... he's an independent guy. And his story, just so you know which way this is leaning, and this is why I said, watch the stories you read. Take that into account. We begin in Arizona, where the state's attorney general and the MAGA drunk local prosecutor, a MAGA drunk local prosecutor, is fighting over those "you made the guys in Kevlar feel bad" lawsuits that are inevitable when an old fool gives license for all manners of young fools to run amok. So, lots of insults in there. And, gee, you think he's going the other way? And this started when a state senator named Analise Ortiz posted the location of ICE operatives, and where Pierce says, which is not remotely illegal. Okay, right there, he is absolutely wrong. But which irked one Brad Miller, the attorney for Pinal County, where Ortiz does not live. All right, so she doesn't represent his jurisdiction. That doesn't matter, folks, just so you know. And Miller wants to be appointed, and this is Brad Miller, who's the attorney for the county, wants to be appointed special prosecutor to investigate her. The Arizona Democratic Attorney General, Chris Mays, is having none of this foolishness. Well, so let me just run over what ICE can do. ICE, which is Immigration Custom Enforcement, can arrest the individuals without a warrant in certain situations, particularly in public places, or where in places or when there is probable cause to believe someone is in the country illegally and might flee. However, ICE typically needs a judicial warrant signed by a judge to enter a private residence. So, and that's 100% accurate. So, now, a politician publicizing the location of an imminent police arrest is likely to be illegal and unethical, potentially potentially becoming obstruction of justice. Obstruction of justice. Revealing information about an ongoing police operation could be considered obstructing justice by hindering law enforcement, potentially allowing the suspects to evade arrest or destroy evidence. Obstruction of justice is a serious offense with potential penalties ranging from fines to imprisonment. So, does it matter that the attorney does not live in her jurisdiction and she does not live in his jurisdiction for him to go and say, I think a crime has been committed? Absolutely not. So, Senator Ortiz can find herself in the situation where she has to explain her actions. Hey, I was just saying the police are going to be on this street at this time. Why? Were there other police? Did you say that they were going to be on this corner conducting a traffic stop? No. Why this release? Do these people think that everyone is stupid? Now, she released where all the police are and where all the ICE agents were across the state, and says, I believe in transparency and all that. And not that that still wouldn't be a problem, but her justification of her actions, you go, all right, she's a nut. And, you know, she has to be sat down and told what you can and cannot do. But if she turns around and she goes, there's nothing wrong with me releasing this information. Oh, yeah, there is. There is. And if she feels like challenging that and taking that fight on, bring it on. I think she would lose, and I think a lot of these people would lose. And again, it's different when it's released to a news media. And the media then sets something up and they go, well, we had someone tell us. I don't have to tell you who it was. They get a certain amount of curtain protection, umbrella protection. She posted it. They know where it came from. This is leaking sensitive information that could get people hurt. Not only the ICE agents, but they're people that they are going to detain could be hurt. What happened if one of them had a weapon? And, you know, the other people are coming out, or they're going, yeah, right. I'm cool. You know. And one guy starts shooting, and then all of a sudden bullets are flying all over the place, and innocent people get hurt. People that, yeah, okay, they might be illegal, but that's no reason they should be in a hell of fire. Whereas if they could have approached these people, boom, and grabbed them and made it safe for everyone, well, don't you think that is a wiser idea? So I think that Ortiz will find herself in the hot seat here. And Charles Pierce, Esquire, feel free to email him. And when you do, and if you do, be civil. Be civil. I hate email where they say they're going to do something to you or blah, 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 blah. Just be civil. And civil is calling him a jerk. Civil is saying, you don't even know what the laws are. And the way you wrote it, you just said, oh, they can do whatever they want to do. No, they cannot. Here's what the law states. And ICE has the power to arrest, which makes them law enforcement. And it's just more of the Democratic dribble and nonsense that will turn off moderate Democrats to either not vote or go, I can't be part of this. Maybe they find another Democrat that they can align themselves to that's running. But now you whittled that vote down again because maybe 1/3 will not vote. And now you split the vote. Now you split it. Or they go, that's not the guy I wanted, that's the other guy. I'm not going to vote, or I'm going to vote Republican. So that's what's going on. It's just more fun and games on a Friday. I think tomorrow I'm going to recap for the week. the stories and see where any of them have progressed to. Though the Schiff things and the DC things will continue to evolve. And, I don't know how much more anyone can stand of that stuff. But we'll find out. Bob in New York, hope everything's okay. Haven't heard from you in a couple of days. I always like hearing about what's going on. All right. And with that, I'm going to say good night. Always give to a charity if you can give to a charity. Just make sure it's a real charity. Give what you can. And if you don't feel comfortable about doing that, food bank it. The last 2 weeks I have been a bit but because it's just been so much going on. But I'll make up this week. I'll make up for it this week. Give it to a food bank if you can. And they need, not just food. Food is great. But they need toilet paper. They need feminine products. They need children products. They need clothing. They need, if it's a cold area, it's, September's coming. It starts getting cooler. If you have old coats, mittens, boots, your kids aren't wearing them anymore, and when they're still good, find someone else that can use that. So there's a lot you can do where it doesn't cost you a dime. You've already spent the money, you used it, and now it's no more use. Instead of giving it to Goodwill or something like that, where they resell it at a very very reasonable price. See if a food banks use it. They give it away for free. And, that's what you should do. The other thing that I'm now with veterans. Veterans who need help. Think about that. There are plenty of veteran organizations out there that need help for our veterans that they're not receiving through the government. Shame on our government. All right, prayer works. Say a prayer. It does work. And with that, I'm going to fade to black. But for my live view, I put up my bars and then fade to black. All right. Let's see if this works. Bye. As I fade to black.